So I was really hoping that this session would actually be more of a discussion, because I think we all have a lot to say on this topic, and actually I'm hoping that we would capture some notes from this session and maybe even produce a report on just the perspectives of those of us in the room that we can share with techUK. So I've got some slides here, and these slides are just meant to really provoke your thoughts a little bit more, but there are some questions at the end where we can hopefully do some deep dives into what your thinking is, and maybe best practice, and what you may be doing within your organization, and what more or what else we could all do. So I've got some statistics here, and at the moment we are all aware that there is a significant need for sort of green skills. There's a gap there of around 200,000 workers, which is emerging as a trend here in the UK, and I'll share some statistics from sort of other regions in terms of what we're seeing as trends there. Of course, there's a rise in searches for green skills. It is also said that within the next sort of 10 years or so, the workforce would look to understand how sustainability creates value within their roles and within their jobs, really. A one-size-fits-all approach to workforce transformation won't be enough. Meaning there would be some wider thoughts and perspectives and an overview on how transformation should be driven with green skills on that as well. And then a realignment of incentives will persuade sort of workers to develop green skills. I don't know about you, and I think we are all in different sort of industries and sectors. From the private sector, if you're in banking sector, there's bonuses may be attached to how well you perform. I guess there's a sort of drive towards realigning the sort of incentives associated with green skills. And actually, as we see more people in green skills jobs, doing more, selling more, doing better, that's actually going to force a sort of shift and a pattern within the sort of areas that haven't really thought about including green skills within their roles. And then, of course, a shift to a green economy will create jobs within new and emerging sectors. I thought we do need to talk about tech for good. This is one of the studies that I was reading through, and I found the statistics really interesting, that 70% of the 169 Sustainable Development Goals targets will be directly supported by technology innovation. And the sort of goals with the lowest number of representation, basically, of tech were sort of no poverty, gender equality, life below water, and life on land. And then, of course, the goals with the highest were good health and well-being, affordable and clean energy, industry, innovation and infrastructure, and sustainable cities and communities. And then, of course, big data. It was found that big data supported 100% of the SDGs. AI was found to be central to 50% of the research that was identified within the specific SDGs. Blockchain played about 25% of when mapped against the sort of research and against some of the SDGs. IoT 33%, and then, of course, advanced materials about 10%. So I found this really interesting, because on the one side, we're talking about tech for good, and actually the skills needed to help deliver on some of the SDGs. And actually, on the other end, we're also saying, well, actually, we need to achieve net zero. We need to achieve all of the targets that we need to achieve. But there's a clear gap here in terms of the knowledge and understanding, application, and the use of tech in some of the core SDGs, which are all key, fundamental, and they're all integrated in terms of our net zero and climate action journey. I won't go into detail on sort of this slide here, but it's just to say that another study looked at specifically where reductions in emissions could be achieved in different industries and what that percentage was across the different industries. And there's a really big technology theme across all of this. So combustion engine vehicles, I think somebody touched on this earlier on. Innovation policy. It was said that that could actually contribute about 35% emissions reductions. And I'll be able to share the source maybe with techUK, and we can share that with those in the room here. But innovation policy actually played a really big role. And then improvements to technology performance and efficiencies could contribute 13% of emissions reductions by 2050 through AI and digitization. 11% could be reduced by a change in human behavior, which was also really interesting. And this is behavior in all sorts, whether it's decisions, buying decisions, or decisions for transportation, decisions to use more efficient solutions, and indeed the development of our technologies and solutions in a green and sustainable way. Those are also decisions that are made by DevOps, architects, service delivery teams, and so forth. And then, of course, carbon capture was there, 11%. But it's also really interesting because the debate is very much at the moment about carbon capture solutions. Yes, we need the skills and the knowledge there, but also there are other areas that also play a really key sort of role. And then, of course, hydrogen and other clean technology, energy, and solutions also played a big role. But how many people in our societies actually know about hydrogen, clean energy, and actually the technologies underpinning that in order to deliver those solutions. I thought we would then move swiftly into sort of the life cycle of our technology and solutions. So with one spectrum, we've got tech for good. With another spectrum, we've got our actual green IT and operations, all the way from the sort of development, production, operations, maintenance, planning. Within that entire life cycle, you've got software development, you've got architecture, and actually sustainability plays a key role here. How you design your products, your solutions right from the start, whether that's your mobile phones, whether that is your cloud platform, right from the start, the decisions you make there at the development phase will then affect the production, the materials, and what you now need to use in order to make sure that all of that is working and the mechanics of your solutions are working. And then the operations and the use of that, which by far does actually, operations and maintenance combined actually do consume the most in terms of energy as well. Now, depending on if you're going to look at the life cycle of a product, obviously from the manufacturing and when it's being developed by the manufacturers, there are those emissions associated, but the actual emissions of their use, and this is specifically from a physical hardware product, but also from a software product, that life cycle is also the same. The use operation, that also affects, there's topics such as performance, and how quickly does your phone respond to a specific instruction to do something. Those are all mechanics that are built into your life cycle. And whatever decision we make impacts another. How efficient is it? How quick is your software? And then what's the knock-on impact on that? Do you make it quick and efficient, but does it consume more energy? There are all those sort of decisions to make within the development. But a question there is how many people within the organization know about that. It is estimated that software will contribute about 14% of emissions globally. So that's a trend that's also upcoming. And we heard today 1 to 3% is what sort of data centers contribute in terms of emissions globally. But I challenge that figure, to be honest, because I don't think that figure includes networks and other information and statistics that we actually need to include within that figure. So we know about data centers, but the networks element is not actually well known. So that's another figure that needs to be added to that. So there's this almost big discussion about, on the one hand, we do need to innovate in order to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and there's a big gap there. On the other hand, we do need these solutions to be developed in a sustainable way, and there's a big gap there. So there's a gap all around, I feel. Some further statistics and thoughts in terms of trends that I came across here. So these are the fastest growing green skills in the EU as of 2022 last year. Climate action planning, right at the top, sustainability education, carbon emissions, carbon accounting, corporate sustainability, hydrogen storage. You can almost see green IT right in the middle. Sustainability reporting, solar system design, ecosystem management, and soil sampling right at the bottom. But at least you can see the sort of hierarchy of what this analysis found. And this is the EU. The US is very interesting. No green IT. It's not even there. But, I mean, you can see carbon accounting. I'm going to move back and forth, and hopefully I won't hurt your eyes too much. I'm closing. But carbon accounting, I mean, was fourth within the EU. It is top in the US. Drinking water quality, energy engineering, carbon credits. Where's carbon credits in the EU? Gosh, it's always fiddly. Can't even see carbon credits on from the EU perspective, but I can definitely see carbon credits from a US perspective. Sort of hazard communication, I suppose this is sort of leading more towards the adaptation side. Tree preservation, conservation, you can see the emissions testing. So really focused on the sort of energy side of the green skills. And I suppose in the EU, we are kind of looking a little bit more broader and perhaps a little bit more advanced. Maybe less on the sort of conservation front, which is what the sort of US side is showing. But really, really interesting, sort of insights there. And I want to pause there because I really would like to sort of ask for your thoughts and insights, and maybe we can move into a discussion. I've just closed my screen. Might have to ask techUK to help. But in any case, we're going into a discussion. So there are a couple of questions that are going through my mind. I suppose the first one being, what are your thoughts as far as the sort of trends that we've just discussed here? And actually, where do we need to start as a tech sector? We seem to have this really big, giant sort of problem around sort of tech for good and tech for operations, and actually the people operating the activities also needing to have knowledge and skills. Where do we start? Are any of you doing any activities in this space, and any examples that you can share? I'll pause there and see if anybody's got any immediate thoughts before I share some more of my thoughts. Yeah.
Hi, so I'm Sarah Dixon from Go Code Green. So we're about a 18-month-old climate tech startup, and actually we specialise in supporting organisations understanding the carbon impact of their software. So that's what we do. As we've kind of gone through that journey, it's become very apparent actually that there's a need to really support people in just understanding the actual, or raising awareness, sorry, of the impact of technology from a sustainability perspective, and also how they can contribute positively in their everyday roles. So there's a lot, I think there's a lot to do just at an awareness level before we get into training and other aspects. So we've been building courses to support people, because you hold a mirror up to a problem and you have to have a solution. And actually we're finding that we're getting a lot of really positive feedback, particularly when it comes to more sort of developer, engineers, really interested in how their jobs can actually contribute positively. So I think there's a lot to be done in the space, and we've all got a responsibility there.
Just a follow-up question. So how are you finding the sort of developers, architects are on one spectrum, and then you've got the sort of estates building? Is that joined up conversation happening in your...
No, it's not particularly.
Okay.
And it's interesting actually. So we're sort of doing some work with another organisation that looks at that side of things to see how we can actually support organisations a bit more collectively around scope 1, 2 and 3, and how you start bringing some of those conversations together. But again, I think it all comes down to the fundamental sort of aspects around raising awareness, helping people understand in a really positive way how they can contribute through their everyday roles and activities. And certainly, you know, one of the things we do that I think is quite sort of engaging for people, but we've developed a self-assessment for people before they enter anything sort of training-wise with us, to really understand their knowledge and understanding of sustainable software engineering tools and techniques. And most people actually rate themselves as poor when they go through that particular self-assessment. It's very short and sharp, it's about 15 minutes and it's anonymous. And we've done that deliberately because we don't want people to feel sort of, you know, exposed. But we get a lot of positive feedback from doing that, just because even going through that process itself is raising some awareness. So I think we really are at the very, very start of this journey.
Okay. Any thoughts? Let's see.
Thank you. Victoria Doherty, Kinetic. Thank you. Really enjoyed your thoughts. I wanted to reflect on some of the comments just shared about the importance of people understanding how their day-to-day jobs can make a difference, because I agree the appetite and the willingness is there. But recently, in a few conversations, I've said with, for example, the leaders of our assurance bits of the organisation who manage the technical assurance or the performance management assurance, I've said to them, you have some of the best levers for change across the organisation, because it's about systematic change, not just about desire. And they've been really surprised, genuinely surprised, that I think they've got the levers for change.
Yeah, great. Any, Craig, there?
Craig Wentworth, Tech Market View. One of the thoughts that came by me recently was thinking around the fact that in recent years we've kind of been looking at tech development from a kind of assumption of plenty, in terms of you can get all the data you want, you've got all the cloud processing you want and everything. So the discipline hasn't really been there to do that sort of development more tightly. And I wonder whether there needs to be some kind of sort of ethos change along the lines of that no code, low code, to no impact, low impact, in terms of how people develop the technology, rather than just assuming they can always have anything they want in order to make the decision, because otherwise the technology itself that's designed to do some good might have some unintended harm on the way to development.
Yeah. Any more thoughts?
Just reflecting on that, I think that's really, really true. And actually sort of building those constraints in up front and almost kind of thinking that through from design stage is really important, and getting people to think in that more constrained way, sort of non-functional requirements for sustainability, and sort of educating people in that space is really important. And I think that's something that is requiring a lot more thought leadership, actually, in that space.
Hi, Jackie Lees from Atkins Realis. So I think my observation when I've been talking to people about kind of upping their skills, trying to do it in their day-to-day job, is everyone thinks they need to be a climate scientist to be able to make a difference. And actually that perception awareness thing you were talking about earlier, I think is super important, because, you know, you can make some small changes. We've heard it earlier today, haven't we? But people don't think they're skilled. An enterprise architect thinks they need to have all these badges around sustainability enterprise architecture, and they don't. It's about general awareness, and I think that's one of the big challenges we've got.
Can I just do, just by a show of hands, how many of us in the room are in sustainability roles? Okay. How many of us are in technology roles? Okay.
What do you mean by technology?
Good question. Okay. Let's say technology without sustainability. You're not in a sustainability role, but you're an architect, you're a developer, or a delivering from a service operation architect or digital research, but the whole sort of DDAT kind of framework, if you're in that sort of role. How many are in that? Interesting. Okay. How many of us are tech organizations? Okay. How many of us are not? Just tech. Okay. It's very, very interesting. I do have a couple of questions. So for those that, and actually I think anybody will have some thoughts around this. Should we be approaching green skills or developing our green software skills or any skills from a technology perspective with a sort of top-down approach or bottom-upwards approach? And where do we have the most impact, we think, in this space?
It should be a bottom-up approach where we want to bring awareness across technology, functional and behavioral skills, then have horizontals like technology. So if it is going to be technology, then if it is going to be design, so design-related skills, then development, then operational skills. Similarly for functional and the behavioral aspects. So that's how
I'll come back to you. I'll hold that thought. There's somebody else with a...
Thank you. Sorry. Hi. Sorry, totally disagree. We've struggled. We've tried bottom up, and you end up with silos. You end up with differences. You end up with pockets of best practice, but nothing structured, nothing built that can be developed upon and learned upon. And we've got numerous different barriers now that we've got to break down, because people have got different levels of education that they've gone through and passions that they have, and it's how do you then balance not disengaging people and keeping everyone on to the right track, but making sure that you've got something structured that can be delivered. I feel like I'm not explaining that.
No, you're
well.
You're doing well. Keep going, please.
I don't think I have anything else. I need this taken away now. But it's,
Okay. So, okay, two very different, interesting views there. If you are going to do it from a bottom upwards perspective, from your sort of experience, where would you say colleagues should start?
Well, we've gone. I thought I'd hate having that mic, so thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy shouting. So we
doing that we need across the organisation so that we can kind of meet in the middle. I'm saying all of this like it's tried and tested and it's working beautifully. We're right at the beginning of our journey.
Right.
So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
But so far we can already identify and visualise the activity that's already happening through the organisation, and we can kind of quantify activity a little bit more because there's less silos. So that's a positive.
Yeah. Do you wanna? Of course, I'll come back to you.
No, I might say something a bit controversial. So I was just going to say it's interesting reflection because we've been on a similar journey, and I think the biggest challenge I've seen is our early careers professionals get it, right? They're getting it in their education, but actually, I don't want to sound ageist, but the older parts of the workforce are the ones that aren't getting it, and actually are the people that need to change. And I think the big question is how much do you push that if they are nearing retirement or exiting the workforce? And I think that is the balance to do, is how do we enable early careers, people, because they're fantastic, to really drive and educate through mentoring and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So just directly linked to that, because it's helpful to share tips when you do have a little nugget that works. One of the things that we've found really powerful is reverse mentoring. So where you get somebody who's passionate about a particular topic or knowledgeable about a particular topic and set them up as a mentor for someone in a really senior role. And that has created some powerful change.
Yeah.
I would just like to defend us nearer retirement. Try to do something.
Okay.
I wasn't aiming at any. It's a real challenge, though, I find.
I think you need to think about where you've got, you asked at the start, bottom up or top down.
Yeah.
I guess you need to understand that, kids going through schooling systems, and we work globally, so Scandinavia, they all get it.
Yeah.
They've been educated on it for quite a long time, so there are older people that get it. But then you've got to think about where's the actual power within the organisation, who can influence change, who can make things happen. I think you need to think about the fact that there are lots of people maybe in that 50s kind of an age range who are thinking, actually, I'd like to pick up some new skills and become more credible and bring all of that experience that I have about my particular domain and apply that to sustainability. So I think it's a really difficult thing that you've got lots of influencers down here without much influence. And then you've got people up there who have all of the influence but not quite enough information. So it's how you get into the middle.
Yeah.
I think
Needs a.
I think you
Go on.
Building on that, I think you're not never too late.
Absolutely.
And if you exclude, that elderly workforce, which has a lot of knowledge and experience, you're doing something that's very bad. You need re-educate, or re-educate is probably the wrong word, but
Yeah. Yeah. At the back, sorry.
Sorry, it's a slightly different perspective on it. That we're seeming to look at skills from the existence of our current day activities, in that our organisation will exist forever. We seem to know that industrial activity damages the planet, and we're saying, well, how do we get the skills to be a little bit better in what we do and get the skills to do that? And at no point do we seem to be asking, should we be doing what we're doing in the first place? Is it of any actual value? It's really interesting that, when we go back to it, it's about clean water, it's about soil health, it's about some basic things. And yet maybe we're in a country with so much plenty that we can spend all our time focused on improving skills to do things that are about entertainment and whiling away the time. And I just wonder whether we might go back and say, should our organisation continue to exist? Does it have purpose? And that was something that was asked about this morning, before we ask ourselves, should we get better at doing what we're doing?
Thank you.
I think actually you need to understand that if you want your business to survive, you need to embed sustainability. And I think once you have established that, then you can actually build on it and say, okay, where are our high impact areas? Where are the people that really will make the difference? Will it be in procurement? Is it scope 3? You know, is it in our designers? You know, where are those areas? You need to do that piece first. And I think mentoring, reverse mentoring, this all plays a part in it. And it's a diverse program, and it's lots of different things that you do. I think I'd also like to mention I'm part of a steering group for 𝗖𝗹𝗶𝗺𝗁, and in June this year we actually launched our Green Skills website. So I advised on that, and I think what you guys were saying about grey, I think one of the things that we were really keen to support was people that are leaving careers and then looking to maybe go to sustainability as a second career, third career even, and for them to actually have a focal point where they can actually get information, because I think that's the main thing that's lacking. People don't know where to go. I mean, people have an idea of, you know, I'm interested in this, this is what I'd like to do, but they don't have somewhere, like one point where they can go and say, you know, where can I go and explore? Yeah.
And we'll have one more, and I'll try and ask a different question.
Could I just jump in on that point really quickly first?
Sure.
Thanks. Because we've done quite a lot of work that crosses over quite closely with what 𝗖𝗹𝗶𝗺𝗁 are doing at the Institution of Engineering and Technology, and we run skills surveys pretty much annually. We've just done a big green skills survey that I've got the results in this week, but we ran a green skills survey back in 2020. And on that kind of top-down, bottom-up, reverse mentoring, all those kinds of approaches, one thing that really, really came out was it's not just those technical skills, it's not just the digital skills. You think sustainability, you think technologies, and you think how are you going to implement them? But one of the things that our members really said that they struggle with is having those soft skills in the management positions and things to actually lead those conversations and develop the people as much as the technical skills.
Yeah. And that comes into where you are educating the managers. Yeah. Right? So that's the governance piece that then comes down.
Yeah, exactly, leadership.
Thank you. I just wanted to add on to that point. So I did do that. I took the career break and went and did a master's in sustainability. But it was hard because, as you were saying, there isn't the information to decide where you go, how you do it, how long you do it for. Right. Should you do a quick course that takes, 6 to 12 weeks, like the Cambridge one that they do for sustainability and business, or do you go and do a full master's? Obviously, the financial implications of that are significant. And yes, you gain all these new skills, and that's definitely been beneficial, and I enjoyed the experience personally, but it does come at a lot of sacrifice, and if you're further along, the financial implications are going to be much bigger of taking a career break than when you're in your 20s, and yeah, okay, it wasn't great, and then cost of living crisis really wasn't great, but I obviously took a much smaller sacrifice than people who would be in a higher up position who are wanting to make that change, so I just want to recognise the difficulties there.
So the one question I do want to ask is, for those of you that may be setting out on the journey, because everybody's probably at different phases of their journey, looking at the resources and the sort of support you have to actually drive what you need to drive and achieve what you need to achieve, what are some of the things that you've sort of gone through to try and mobilize resources, whether that's finance, budgets, and whilst we're all thinking about that, I'm just going to take my sort of CSO hat and actually say, from my sort of experience, the sort of top-down, bottom-up approach works really well, because the one problem you have is you've got a board, decision makers that may have the budgets, the finances, and can actually help to open those sort of really difficult doors that you're trying to open, that you quite rightly pointed out need to know about this topic and need that education. So there's that influencing position you need to take with that sort of group or category of stakeholders, and you need to be using your bottom-upwards approach, because there's an influence there in terms of their interests, how you can, the sort of workforce that's now sort of coming into even our organization in CGI are incredibly passionate about sustainability. So there's that lever for us. There's the lever around the teams for those that may be in the private sector who are being asked by clients to evidence what it is that they're doing. So there's that lever there, and there's other levers that different teams can actually support in terms of helping you with your journey for whether it's net zero or modern slavery or human rights. But from a resource perspective, I think we're all organizations of different sizes, different maturity levels. How are you mobilizing? How are you finding that journey to actually getting the budget that you need? And what are you doing to be successful on that front?
I'll jump in there for a second, because and I should declare now, fundamentally I sell things to other companies. So, you know, one of my biggest challenges is mobilising organisations to spend that money to invest. And the thing that I think we're finding most successful goes back to the word that you use, which is maturity. And it's impressing upon the people at the top of the organisation to understand their level of maturity. And it's a different vocabulary for those people. You know, it's about, will your business survive? Will you be able to differentiate yourself through sustainability? You know, is it worth strategic investment? But if you also share that maturity model with people lower down the organisation, then they're the ones who are actually going to be quite shocked as to where they are, having been sold the dream that, yes, we're serious about sustainability. So if you can find some way to measure maturity and get people at the top and the bottom of the organisation to participate in that, you'll quickly find all the skeletons and the cash to get rid of it.
Yeah. It's that financial language, that being able to articulate these are the savings you will generate by driving your sustainability. These are the opportunities that are there.
That's the key word. It's not savings, because this isn't about savings in many cases. It's the opportunity, it's the access to the market, it's retaining that market, and it's differentiation.
Any thoughts? Yeah.
I think it's also, I mean, everyone in this room is probably familiar. It's okay. Everyone's familiar with.
There might be some people at the back. Sorry, I might just need to
But the thing is,
get the mic.
You've got the buy-in from the top. That is the main thing. Because if you've got the buy-in there, if your senior leadership has KPIs linked to sustainability, when money is involved, that is when you know things are going to change. People are going to make things happen. And that's when I think you can see real change happen.
You need, I mean, you're absolutely right. Yeah. You know, without the buy-in at the top, you know, so you say Scandinavia, you know, either way you turn, your arse still behind. And you know, you're not going to go anywhere.
Did anybody else have any thoughts? What about models? Centralized versus decentralized model for driving sustainability. I mean, you know, I find that the language that we're using now in sustainability is almost starting to mirror languages in other areas, like how do you drive your transformational program, and what does your structure look like? Do you have a central team that's core and delivering sustainability, or do you decentralize your sustainability? And where are you on that journey? How have you, for those that may be doing that, because I think that's core to the sort of green skills and actually the areas we were looking at here in terms of the life cycle, because actually to be successful here, there are different teams and functions that are involved in the development, in the delivery of some of this. And do we embed our sustainability teams within these teams, or do we have a central sustainability team. Just any thoughts there? I'm being told I've got 1 minute to round up.
So I think there's an argument for both, actually, a bit of both. As we're early on in our journey, you need a central push, if I'm honest, to identify the people who are going to make the difference. But over time, that needs to disappear and move to that decentralised, so it's everyone's challenge. And I think weaving it in sustainability into the DNA of everything you do is probably the biggest challenge that we've got as sustainability leaders.
And that's probably a good note to end on, because I often always say from a net zero perspective, certainly, that actually the aim is to almost get yourself out of a job. Because if other people are doing it and are doing it very well, then actually there isn't any need for you. Then that's not to say that you're not going to have a job at the end of the day, but the aim is to have it fully integrated within different teams, within different areas, and that's how you sort of know that you're being successful and that you're progressing in the right direction. With that in mind, we will close this conversation here, but we had people sort of capturing notes throughout. The session was recorded. We won't release any recordings or anything like that. Of course, I think techUK are here. But what I really would like to do is to just capture this conversation and hopefully turn that techUK into some kind of a high-level summary report that we can maybe publish as an outcome and maybe a starting point for insights on green skills, and hopefully we can grow this conversation to an even larger platform. So thank you very much, everybody.